You like to have a screen?
Yes, I'll share my screen. Uh,
Yeah.
okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Maybe it
Okay,
full screen. Yeah. It
all
is.
right, great. Uh, thank you, Dr. Agarwal, for inviting me. It's my pleasure to talk to you all today. Some of it might be redundant concepts for CIOs, but I wasn't sure of where everyone is in their journey with AI, so I included some basic material. So please bear with me, and then I will also go to more contemporary material as I go through. And feel free to let me know that this is, if it is trivial stuff, then we can move on quickly. So basically, I want to talk about what my views are on where businesses are headed with AI. And it's please pardon me if I'm giving it more from the academic viewpoint, because people who are actually running businesses will probably have a much more in-depth and nuanced view of this. So the kind of things that I would like to cover is quickly, what is AI, why is it progressing at breakneck speed, and how can we discern between the hype and reality of AI? What does the future hold for business leaders, and how should we upskill our workforces? So the first thing is AI ML just a fad? So there have been so many buzzwords that have come in the last 30 years and throughout history, some of which have become so seamlessly integrated with our lives today, but others have not panned out very well. So uh, about 30 years ago or 40 years ago, programming, data structures, databases, IT, these were buzzwords. But now we don't think of them, and they are like almost like oxygen for businesses. Computer networks, wireless communication. Now, other things such as Web 2.0, nanotechnology, crypto, they have had mixed success in terms of being seamlessly integrated with various parts of businesses in across industries. And that basically goes up with the any technology life cycle, that initially you will have uh, frantic innovation, and there'll be a lot of early adopters, but then the technology will reach maturity, and then perhaps it will go to decline, or it will become so seamlessly integrated that we think it is a decline, because no new innovation is happening, but it has become an indispensable part of everything, which has sort of what has become with mobile technology, for example, today, or the internet. Now, uh, this is a more simplistic picture. A more nuanced picture can be that there can be a new wave of innovation, and that is what we are seeing with AI today. So, AI, machine learning, etc., it's not that they were not important 20 years ago, but in the last 10 years, and now with ChatGPT, etc., these kind of generative technologies in the last 1 or 2 years, we are seeing a new wave of innovation. So let's not just go by these cartoon drawings that only show one wave. There can be multiple waves of innovation, and these have become quite ubiquitous now for various kinds of problems that we solve for businesses, such as converting voice to text, um, having chatbots, image analysis, and so forth. And slowly they are coming to more complex decision making, such as driving and so forth. So just a brief overview of of what are these technologies and how are they related, how are these words related. So AI is a very broad term for any system that exhibits intelligent behavior. Within that, a subset of technologies is called machine learning, which learns from data, learns new behavior from data. Whereas AI can also be static, that it has complex rules encoded, which was the expert systems in the 60s and 70s. Within machine learning, you have neural networks that learn to extract features on their own. And when they have specific structures and they work on specific types of data, they can become very deep and complicated. And that is what deep learning is. And a lot of the buzz that you are hearing about AI is actually deep learning. So as you all probably know, that how AI trains is that you have data and you have labels, and that will give you models. And for that, you need to have a good handle on the past data and the past outputs or the labels that you wanted from it. So only then it can be trained and validated for future prediction of labels or whatever outcomes that you want. And in general, I would divide AI into two kinds of technologies. One is predictive and the other is generative. So predictive is where you know the output that needs to be generated and it generates that output. So, for example, you want to recognize a face, you want to convert some part of speech into text. All those are part of predictive AI, and it can do classification, regression, ranking, matching faces, matching images, etc. But then there is generative AI, which is making more buzz today, where you are asking it to generate something that doesn't exist. And so, how does it even know what it has generated is good enough or not? So, in general, it is working by pitting two different types of models against each other. One is a counterfeiter, which is generating fake or new or artificial output, and the other is a police model that tries to distinguish between what is real and what is artificial. So, when we think of Turing test at a machine that can pass off as having a conversation with a real human is really intelligent. So, how we make it intelligent is by pitting two different models against each other. These are AI models. So the counterfeiter is generating artificial output, and the police is learning to distinguish between the artificial and natural. And the goal of counterfeiter is to generate more believable natural outputs, including text, images, etc. And the goal of the police is to get better at spotting these differences. So now going back to the predictive AI, in image recognition, predictive AI has already now surpassed average humans. So I wouldn't say expert humans. So there is a annual challenge. There used to be an annual challenge where we would pit computer vision or AI models against each other for classifying 1 million images that belong to 1,000 different categories. And before deep learning, they used to make a lot of error, 26% error in getting the correct category in the top five. And then 2012 onwards, when deep learning started getting used, there was a significant jump in accuracy or decrease in error rates to the point that uh, that the AI community stopped having this competition, annual competition, because it surpassed human capability. Now, what we mean by human capability, we have to take that with a grain of salt. So, if you have 1,000 different image categories, not every human will be expert at all 1,000 categories. Some may be, for example, they may be very good at spotting different dog breeds, and they will probably still do better than AI if they are experts in that area. But when you take a general human and average their behavior across 1,000 different categories, then these machine learning models have learned from labels provided by multiple experts. So that's why they are exceeding the average accuracy of a given person. And then now looking at the kind of things you can do with generative AI. So if you ask DALI, which is by OpenAI, a generative program for generating images, you ask it to draw Gandhi in Monet style. So it's a Monet style painting of Gandhi that it has generated. So what does this tell us about content creators who have been going to art school and learning to paint like Monet and learning to make realistic paintings of Gandhi or whichever other subject they wish to draw, right? So that's, we can say that it's bad news for them, but I think the reality is a little more nuanced. I will come to that in a bit. Similarly, if I ask AI, let's say you have an assignment or you want to write an article and you are asked to write about advantages of brushing teeth at night instead of morning. So this chat GPT gave me a very good bulleted answer of why I should be brushing at night as opposed to morning, right? And so how it works is that this is a very large model. In When I say large, it means that it has many billions of tunable parameters, and it has been trained on trillions of words that it has crawled on the internet. Now herein lies some of the problems of training these models. So when you train on everything that is available on the internet, it learns the consensus of the internet, whether or not that is true. The other disadvantage is that it only learns the wisdom of the internet up to a certain point, and wisdom of only the open internet, not the private nets, private knowledge that you have in the companies, or the new knowledge that is being created that falsifies previous theories, that it does not keep up with very, in a very timely manner. But still, let's go into more examples of what we can do with these technologies. So I was doing some R programming, and earlier I would, if I would get stuck in what I have to do, I would I would type the question in Google, and then it would give me bunch of pages on Stack Overflow, on GitHub, and so forth, that I would have to spend a half an hour, 1 hour going through to find the right answer that I need. So here I wanted to change the font of some titles in R programming, and I asked this to ChatGPT, and it not only told me how to do it, it also gave me a code snippet that I could use. So imagine what it can do to enhance the productivity of programmers. Now, does that mean that programmers are redundant? Certainly not. It's because it cannot generate a full length code for your entire application. It and it will generate with some errors because it is a statistical model. It's not a factual model. The statistical model has learned from correlating various answers to the same question on the internet, and is producing some sort of an average answer, and in that average some of the nuances are lost, some errors are made. So it's, you can think of it as a force multiplier, but it's not a replacement. Okay, so why is it happening now? Obviously because we have lots of data. We can inexpensively collect, store and transmit data. We have lots of compute server farms of several GPUs and so forth, and we have these new frameworks that Professor Fatak talked about, such as transformers and convolution neural networks and generative models that can now make sense of large amounts of data. Yet, machine learning or AI is not a silver bullet. Okay, so it only works when you have some kind of structured data, right? So it is, if you are not sure what the output looks like, what you are looking for it, then it doesn't work very well. So, for example, unsupervised learning is still not very successful. It's all supervised learning that is making the big news till now. If you have too little data, AI finds it hard to generalize to new domains. So, for example, even though ChatGPT has the wisdom for all the general answers for questions that have been asked on the internet by various people and answered, so it has learned the patterns of those answers, it doesn't actually have intelligence behind it in that sense. So if you want to ask specific questions about a topic, I will show you that it doesn't do very well in sometimes. And if your data is too unstructured, then you cannot exploit these new ML models. They are actually exploiting structure in the data. So if you don't have structure, then it doesn't work very well. So what I mean by not having structure is, so for example, if you have customer receipts, and it's just so if you have a consumer goods store, and the receipts can be long or short in length. They can have multiple quantities of things that have been bought, multiple SKUs that have been bought, and so forth. But if they're not categorized very well, stored in some kind of a tabular form, then ML doesn't do very well on that. And if the models are simple or explainability is desired, then you're better off using statistics and physics, because these models are becoming more and more complex and less explainable. So what I mean by structure of data is, obviously the simplest form of structure is a table. You have, table headers, and you have entries in that table. But you can also have temporal order. So if you look at an audio signal, it's a temporal order, a time series of signals, just like stocks. And if you look at images, it's a spatial order of pixels, up, down, left, and right. And then you can have graphs which are connected or not connected entities are shown next to each other. So you need some kind of a structure. And the basic requirement of being able to use machine learning is to have lots of data. Number one. Number two, lots of labels for those data. And number three, structured and clean data. So this um, and you can obviously overfit and underfit these models. So you don't want to be in overfitting. You want to test your models on unseen data, and then not just obsess with model choice and training and validation, but have a complete view of the machine learning life cycles that you will have. So it starts with need identification, data gathering. Can I gather enough data? Can I label enough data? Can I gather it effectively? Can I gather it ethically, and so forth? Then only comes things that are taught in ML classes, which is choice of model, or in research papers, how to train and validate them. But then, of course, we also have to have a foresight of the deployment environment. Will it be deployed on a mobile device? Can I have access to a server? How much can I afford to pay for an API for when I deploy it, and so forth? Uh, does the cost benefit analysis really work out? So all that consideration also has to be thought about when we are considering using these models. And of course, once you have deployed the model, it's not a fire and forget missile. We have to keep monitoring that if there are changes in demographics, changes in customer buying behavior, customer other kind of behavior, changes in the environment, regulatory environment, and so forth, does it still work? The model that we have put in place, does it still work for this data? So often overlooked questions when we are working with AI are we solving the right problem? Do we have enough data? Do we have diverse and representative data? Is it ethically gathered? Is it meticulously recorded? Are we using the right models, AI models, that exploit the structure of the data? Is it too complex, too little complex? Have we validated it? So this is the most critical part. Have we validated it in realistic scenarios, and not just optimistic scenarios? Have we covered the diversity of use cases so that we can avoid faux pas, such as you train face recognition on Caucasian people and then you suddenly show it Chinese people, and it confuses between two different Chinese people? So that those kind of things we want to avoid. So it has to be realistic validation and diverse validation. Have you given guidance to the users on how to use it, and are they not over relying or under relying on the models that we have put in place? And has is it being used ethically, and is it tracking the changes in data over time? So I'll give a quick um, I'll do a quick exercise to see whether we can answer some of these questions. If someone says in your company that we need to record every keystroke, okay, and mouse movements of our employees so that we can run machine learning on it later. So what kind of questions we should be asking before we go on to this exercise, right? So first of all, is it an ethical means of gathering data? Is it a breach of privacy of your employees, even though they are your employees, um, to record every keystroke, every mouse movement, and so forth? Do we have the storage to actually store the volume of data that we will unlock on ourselves? Um, and then what will we do with this? So, for example, let's say someone says that we will use this to predict which employee is ready to leave, and then if they are a star employee, we'll entice them better, or if they are not a star employee, then we will do something else with them. So again, the question is that ethical behavior, right? So these all critical thinking questions, they come around use of AI in businesses. If someone comes and says, our product can give biometric access on face recognition, no need for cumbersome finger ID and iris scans. Question is, what has it been tested on? If we change it to the different lighting conditions, will it still work, and so forth? So we don't want to just simply go by the numbers that someone throws at us. We want to be able to ask them more critical questions. And then there are other considerations that will come in use of AI. One is obviously cost. Do we have the dedicated GPU servers or other hardware that is required? What is the in the deployment environment? Can we afford that cost? What is the cost of these API services, and so forth? Does it justify the benefit we'll get? If What is the impact on use of power, electrical power or energy power, and the impact on the environment? And then obviously now this AI talent is being concentrated into few hands because of the resources that are required to train some of these large models. And then the next few things that I will highlight is these some of these generative AI models are leading to a lot of conformity and loss of nuance, and they are not yet tailored on in-house data and knowledge. Let me give you an example. So if you look at Airbnb, there's a very nice article by Alex Murrell. It's called The Age of Average. He's talking about several things such as Airbnb rooms, Instagram photos, Instagram model faces, uh, and logos and shapes of cars and so forth. And he makes a very good case for that everything is becoming more and more, it's conforming to each other, and there's a loss of creativity that you see on the internet. So Airbnb rooms are now all this wood finish with exposed bricks and modern furniture. You don't see antique furniture anymore on Airbnb advertisements, and all women are wearing hats and posing in front of landscapes and so forth, or all men are, doing whatever kind of poses that men do for their Instagram photos and so forth. So there is a case to be made that now that your AI is also going to be trained on more and more images that look alike, or more and more text that looks alike, it will spit out generative stuff that also conforms a lot to the average that you see on the internet. So there'll be a loss of creativity, there'll be a loss of originality unless we train content creators, employees, etc., to specifically break away from the mold and not uh, over rely on AI. Another example of where some of these generative technologies fail, we say that ChatGPT is a Google killer. If I ask ChatGPT to do a literature review on domain adaptation, which is one of the my research interests in machine learning, it will summarize the biggest um, papers that have come in domain adaptation, but it does not tell me the latest stuff that has come in domain adaptation. It doesn't tell me some of the more nuanced literature survey that I need to do to find new research directions, to find new ideas, and so forth. It gives me the basic uh, core or widely used techniques. So when it comes to innovation, these generative technologies are not going to give you the answer. Okay, they will give you the basic answer, they will give you the average answer, they will give you the top few answers, but then you will still have to do the hard work of actually going into the trenches and finding new stuff or thinking about new stuff. So where this ML research is now heading is training more and more with unlabeled data, which is what has happened with generative AI, and with especially with the Chat GPT, because they look at a big chunk of text and they hide certain words from the model, and the model tries to predict them. In doing so, it learns the statistical pattern of the words, and in doing so, it learns to say what the next sentence should be if you write one sentence, and that's how it learns to answer questions. uh, Train with fewer label data, give it more high level uh, thinking, learning from one task and going to another task, designing models that can explain their decisions. So we are not there yet, but it's slowly going in that direction, and make models more cautious by recognizing new scenarios. So if you ask ChatGPT a question that, can you please do uh, prior art search for a particular patent, it will say, I'm just an AI model, you should do your own AI. That is because it is trying to limit its own liability, and but that has been hard programmed. My guess is that it has been hard programmed by OpenAI to recognize certain scenarios where it should not be giving answers that bring liability to OpenAI. Uh, but now we want models that automatically learn to be more cautious by recognizing new scenarios, and those that can adapt to specific data sets. So now ChatGPT is only adapted to the entire internet, but not to your company's specific knowledge, body of knowledge, and so forth. So, but that building that extra layer without loss of privacy of your company's data to OpenAI or to another company, that would be the next line of research. So stay tuned to see when that comes in something called federated learning. Okay, so what does it mean for business leaders, right? So 30 years back we could have asked the same question about computers. So the I like to use the same framework that we would have used 30 years ago. to ask the same question about AI, right? So I'll come to AI. Let's just talk about computers 30 years ago because we already know the answers. We would not ask this question today that should I use computers to run my business, right? Should there be a computer in my business? Should there be databases in my business and like SQL queries and front ends built on top of that to help my business? We would not. It's a done deal. We should have it, right? So that's not even a question to ask. The question is which functions of my business should be computerized. So whenever there is like store of information, retrieval of information, organization of information, of course those should be computerized. You don't want paper records and the cumbersome nature of those. But there are things that you cannot computerize. If you are in a care business, if you are supplying nurses for home care, you cannot computerize that, right? So there's a certain aspect of your business that has to remain human. So we should be asking questions at this level. Which functions in my business can be computerized? What will I gain by computerization? Is this efficiency and so forth? And then what will I lose by computerization, right? So, for example, back then in computerization, if you just store text, the text was pretty useless, but perhaps like if you store it in a table, it was useful. So now let's ask similar questions of AI now. Should I use AI to run my business? That's a foregone conclusion now, but then we should be asking a more nuanced question: which functions in my business can use AI, right? And then what will I gain by using AI for a function in my business? And uh, and what will I lose when I use AI in my business? So some of these I have answered. So obviously, if you want quick answers, if you want a quick text, quick picture, obviously generative AI is very good. If you want to make predictions, predictive AI is very good. But what you lose is uh, certain level of creativity, certain level of customization. What you lose is sometimes for these nuanced answers that you need to give to limit liability, those these models are not very good at spotting right now. Okay. So obviously there are lots of use cases. You can do image analysis, you can do automated customer recognition, summarization of customer feedback, writing. Now you with the generative AI, you can write articles and promotional materials, have photos to go with that, and have a first cut at even coding small snippets and have more useful chatbots. So now what should we do to prepare our workforces to use these technologies, right? So obviously the topmost is that they should be on a continuous learning program to see where AI is going and what are the new use cases. Okay. But we should temper their enthusiasm, we should temper our own enthusiasm with some solid critical thinking, such as what is the cost benefit analysis of using AI technologies for a particular function in the business. Can we use AI as a force multiplier, right? So, for example, Times Group is already writing news stories using ChatGPT. So they bring the fact that has happened today. ChatGPT doesn't know the fact because its training stopped, couple of days or couple of years back on data that was there until a couple of years back. So it doesn't know today's fact. But you say that assuming this is today's fact, write a news article on about this, and it will write something, and it will make up facts because it's only a statistical program. It's a probabilistic program that just makes believable text based on what you are asking. Now that has to be edited, but that editing is a much lighter job than writing the entire article from scratch. So we can use it as a force multiplier, right? But then also not over rely on it, not just simply say publish just by based on the first text that has been generated. Cross verify it. It makes up it, for example, it makes up citations of where it got the facts from. So maybe the next versions of GPT type technology will do fact checking also, but currently they don't. And then encourage them to do a proper use and assessment of AI models. So this is my last slide. I think I can switch to questions now.
It's a very insightful, I will say, not a talk, is a discussion, Professor Amit, you have initiated in the mind of CIOs. I'm sure there will be few questions, no? And you have nicely described the stages and now where we are heading. That you nicely described, and I'm sure that CIOs who are attending this program, and I would like to share with you, Professor Amit. A couple of people have share on the chat box. Excellent insight for your talk, and not a single person has signed off so far. So was so engaged with your. It's a technical discussion, technical, and this is where I think we have to now step in. We have to step in not only in the strategies always, but in technical. So thank you very much. Now I open for a few questions. If you have few questions, we have an experience sharing session just after this. But if you have any question, kindly ask Professor Amit. He is available now for a few minutes. Anybody can ask. Yeah,
So one of
Umesh,
the
you want to
questions
ask?
is,
Yeah.
will AI and ChatGPT can it be used for writing ransomware codes? That's a very good question, right? So
Mm.
I think OpenAI would like to limit its own liability, and it will preempt answering some malicious questions. But the technology itself is agnostic to ethics,
Mm.
right? So if someone replicates ChatGPT type technology, they can use it to write ransomware. Yes.
Mm. Yeah. Any Umesh, you want to ask some? Yeah, Umesh.
Yeah, Professor Amit sir, it was very insightful, very, very other side of the knowledge that probably as a CIOs or CPO what what the exposure. Very clear question. As a CIO or a CTO of a company, uh, what would be the because now the chat GPT at the getting into the inflection point. So should we as a CIO or a CPO should keep observing what's happening around or get into the bandwagon with some kind of experimental cases with respect to our business domain that we work or cases, or probably let the maturity of this technology platform comes to a such an maturity level and then enter. So this is very typical question with everyone's mind. That's the reason I asked. If you can give some insight in this area, would be really appreciate.
Right. So the brief answer is that with any new technology, it's a double-edged sword, right? So there are chances to burn your hands, and there are chances to gain competitive edge over other companies. So there has to be a mindset of innovation, that just like with any other technology adaptation. But that enthusiasm has to be tempered with realistic questions about, is it really going, does it really justify the cost benefit analysis, or are we just chasing a buzzword? So that hard business thinking has to be married with the enthusiasm to adopt the new technology. So that's my brief answer. Other than that, it all depends on your situation, on your businesses in which you are experts.
Just to add, Umesh, being a CEO of Catonic, it's an AI platform company. Our experience has been for business to use. You really need to understand what is that you're trying to focus, as Professor Amit Sethi has said. But apart from that, there are huge challenges of data. I mean, data and data labeling, which was mentioned earlier. I mean, extracting the feature set and identifying the data, people want to do a lot of stuff, but our experience is when it gets passed on to get the data collection, featuring, I mean, that's where it is failing. And then if you can't get a proper set of data and labeling, you can't really create those models which will give the benefits. So what our experience practical is, you're not getting the proper data. Because there are a lot of hurdles and people say, oh, मैं क्या करूंगा अगर मैं सब दे दूंगा. So that's kind of a fear. Secondly, what is required is not translated down the line. So they really do not know what to give. So those are the practical challenges which are coming.
Right. So I'll read some of the chats. One says that it raises ethical issues, responses may be biased and may lead to cultural changes. That's very true. That's very true. And that has that is beginning to happen. You will see more and more conformity, more and more push towards certain answers and so forth. So that is definitely a danger, and loss of creativity, loss of divergence in thinking is also a danger with this. Next question is, what would you recommend as a roadmap for organizations looking to start on this journey? What I would suggest is identify your key employees who are tech savvy, who are amenable to adapting and evaluating new technologies, and put them in touch with people who are core business thinkers. Not just let technologists run the rule, or not just let traditional business thinking run the rule. They both have to work together. That would be my recommendation. How edtech industry will be impacted by chat gpt? So obviously a lot of canned answers now will be generated by chat gpt, but now the counter AI technology that can spot the difference between human written text and chat gpt written text is also coming, uh, to check plagiarism, and or check we need a new term. It's not plagiarism per se, but it's like it's not your original answer either, right? So the edtech industry will be definitely impacted by this. Generative AI has been used for malware and churning out malware, yes. What is the expected timeline where generative AI will be used by most organizations? So obviously there will be, people have already started writing APIs and functions on top of the chat GPT AI and so forth. So very soon, and people have already started using it. Like I mentioned, Times Group is writing articles based on chat GPT. A relative of mine is writing her performance reviews for her subordinates using ChatGPT. Luckily, she tells them that she's using ChatGPT, and they don't mind it. But that's what it's already starting to happen. So this will be a game changer, more faster than we think. It's in the next 1 or 2 years, a lot of companies will be using, at least playing with the idea of using AI technologies, generative AI, and so forth. Um, and we need watchdogs, of course. So there was a recently a open letter signed by several business leaders and world leaders, including Elon Musk, that we should pause generative technologies because they are moving too fast and we don't know how to regulate them and so forth. They are just self-regulated by the companies that are creating it. Whether that is because they are left behind and that's why they want their competitors to pause, or is it their real genuine intention for the good of the world to pause, that remains to be seen. But definitely I don't think the regulation and the thinking behind the ethics of it, and the familiarization or the dissemination of that information about the ethics of it is going fast enough compared to how these technologies are emerging. Do you see privacy getting impacted by ChatGPT? Italy has already banned the use of ChatGPT. How do you foresee countries uh, following this trend? So privacy. So for now, ChatGPT type technologies are training on what is on the internet. So what is on the internet is already not private. Uh, so privacy is less of a concern unless they are somehow breaching your firewalls. They are breaching your uh, you know your security measures to get data from your company. Until then, I don't think privacy itself is violated. But then there are other ethical issues like others have mentioned before. um, any specific use cases where you see chat gpt being of greater value? So generating promotional content is the biggest, easiest thing that we can do now with chat gpt, including images with lambda type technologies like or dali type technologies that I showed you. So we don't need to rely on a fixed set of stock images, a fixed set of content writers and so forth. um, and then high courts use for judgments. So not sure what that is. Text to image is also being used. Will it impact the artists? Yes, it will. It's Artists are already very worried that they will not be commissioned to generate images or to generate art and so forth. So it's just like with anything else, right? So there is room for specific highly skilled painters still, even though we can, photography has can we can capture beautiful landscapes using photography, using our phones that we carry in our pockets and so forth. Yet there is space for someone to do more creative work. So as long as people are breaking the mold, as long as people are generating new thoughtful content, that space will shrink, but they will become, those content creators will become of higher value. If you want to just generate techno music to which everyone is dancing, that's one thing. AI will be very easily able to do that. But if you want to generate uh, new music that becomes like a new trend and so forth, for that you will need genuine content creators. Perhaps they will become better at nudging AI in directions of new creativity, and they will use AI as a tool to generate more creative content than the others, than their peers.
I
Uh,
think, Professor Sethi, we can sum up now.
yeah,
You like to sum up, sir?
yeah. So it's a very exciting and a little bit anxious time for with these technologies, that where are they going? Just like how computers put a lot of people who were at the lower end of the skill level out of business, at least in the short term, that is definitely going to happen with AI. But in the long term, we'll be able to do more with less. The only danger is that if we can do everything with less, then who has the power to do that, and will the benefits of that will be shared with all the others? So for that we have to think both in terms of capitalistic and socialistic mindset to see where we are headed with these technologies.
Thank you very much, Professor Amit. It's a really insightful, wonderful, talk, and you have answered most of the questions, So we really appreciate your time. And sometime I like to come and meet you in the department, whenever you have time. Next week I will be coming. So thank you very much. And with this, now we'll move on to the next session. Before I invite Sanjay Agrawal, who is going to curate the next discussion, where CIOs, two of the CIOs will